Welcome to Cap10 General again. Let's talk about the stock market 2021 and will it crash? And also, where is inflation? If anyone knows, please let me know. I'll say a bit about that in a moment. Okay, a few people have been asking me if the stock market's going to crash. Now, as you're probably aware, we had that big retracement last year because of the pandemic, about 30-35%. In March, we had quite a nice high in February 2020. And then by March it had come off 30% odd off its high. Anyway, it has retraced that, of course, as you know, and it's gone on to hit approximately 32,000 points, which is rather nice on the Dow Jones. Will the stock market crash? A few people think it will. Now, it's got very high, sure, but it's got a lot of drivers behind it, and I want to talk about that. For a long time now, the central banks globally have been trying to drive people out of savings and into corporate investments, company investments, so shares, equity, corporate bonds, that sort of thing, so that you get yield on your money. So what they do is they drive down interest rates so you don't get as much money for leaving it in the bank, and you invest. Because the banks aren't really meant to invest your money, they're meant to sort of hold your money and have access to it when you need it. They're not there to invest. So the net result is that governments and central banks have basically decided, they've conspired, if you like, with each other to decide to get you to invest in companies to drive growth, jobs, inflation if possible, rather than do lots of fiscal spending or money printing, although they've done quite a bit of money printing and quite a bit of fiscal spending as well. So monetary is the reserve banks and central banks doing their monetary work. Fiscal is when the government spends money. And then, but the other big one, and this is one people don't really talk about that much, is they're forcing people to invest. And that's a bit dangerous without proper investment training or training in saving and the importance of saving, which I'm a big believer in. Now, the net result of all of that is I don't see the stock market crashing. Look, and even if it did, it'd retrace not within years, but within weeks or months, because of the liquidity that they're forcing into the system. Now, we're going to talk in another podcast about spending, government spending. Will it work? And that's a whole other topic. But it's certainly the case that government and central bank policy is pushing investors into the market, into investments, and that's driving the stock market, and that's not going to change. And also, government spending is going to continue. So fiscal spending and monetary policy, quantitative easing from the central banks, that will continue for the next 3 to 4 years. So it looks like asset prices are only heading one way. And people are talking, even pretty openly about the buy everything trade and the reinflation trade. So it's no longer just the chase for yield or the energy trade or the clean tech trade or whatever, or the tech trade. It's now, or bond trade. Now it's the buy everything trade, the reinflation trade. And that brings me nicely to the last point, which is, where is inflation? Now, inflation has been a boogeyman for decades, and people still talk about worried that it's going to come back. And look, at some point it will. But it's very hard for it to come back because of the deflation that's been created in the past 40, 50 years with globalization, widespread manufacture coming online, the liquidity in markets, symmetric information, economists would say. So instead of asymmetric information, which drives prices up because you don't know what the prices are for different things, you can't get the best price. There's a lot more information because of the internet, so you have symmetric information. It's easier to find the cheapest price and to chase the cheapest price if that's what you want. And that makes it very hard for inflation to rise because inflation hides in the shadows, and if there's more light, then inflation can't lurk around. And so the light of the internet and better information is highly deflationary. So inflation in a big way is probably a long way off unless there's sort of a Weimar Republic printing of money. And it's arguable that that's not happening, that they're keeping it within limits. Pretty bold limits, but still within limits. Anyway, the net result is that I don't think the stock market's going to crash anytime soon, and I don't think we're going to see any inflation. But you let me know what you think. I'm interested to know. Please make a comment. Positive, negative, or right in the middle, doesn't matter. Let me know. Thanks.